Welcome back to Wages and Employment at Wilfrid Laurier University. Today we're going to look at Canada's unemployment insurance programs. For reference, you should pair this video with readings in Chapter 3 of your textbook. So before trying to map employment insurance into our model to understand work incentives, we have to look at how EI actually works. Its purpose is to insure a person against losses associated with unemployment. So while it covers being fired for reasons beyond your control, it won't cover anyone who quits their job or is fired for a good reason they might have prevented. To be eligible, you have to make EI contributions, which come off most people's paychecks, and have worked enough hours. How many hours depends on the local unemployment rate, with an expectation it should be easier to stay employed when unemployment rates are low. So you should have a longer history before qualifying. So if you meet those criteria and are eligible for some benefits, they have to work how much you'll receive. Many of the parameters here also depend on local unemployment rates, but generally speaking, they will replace 55% of past earnings for workers with average or less than average earnings. They also place limits on how long a person can receive benefits. This will depend on local unemployment rates and your own work history, ranging between 14 and 45 weeks of benefits. While there are many moving parts in EI, we will create a simplified version here that gets us some key parameters, and we'll map this into our potential income constraint in the next slide. For our simplified version, we're going to have 52 weeks of the year, and each week we can earn $1,000. To be eligible, a person needs 12 weeks of insured employment, and once they're eligible, they can receive 55% of the earnings that they were receiving before. But they can only receive that for up to 20 weeks, which is then our maximum weeks of benefits. We'll start here in our world with no EI. But once they meet that 12-week requirement, they can work 12 weeks and then collect EI for 20 weeks. Now, whether they were to work 1 more week, 2 more, or 20 more, they are still only eligible for 20 weeks of benefits. So 1 week of extra work in the year just gains them the weekly wage. There's no change to their annual EI benefits. As such, the next segment has the same slope as the original constraint. But then, if the person works more in the year, say taking leisure time of 19 weeks, they gain the week of earnings, but they have to give up that week of EI, taking only 19 weeks of EI over the year instead of 20. So the slope of this next segment is flatter to reflect that net gain in consumption associated with the additional week of work. And of course, if they work all 52 weeks, they would get 0 EI benefits. So now that we have our budget constraint to consider, we can think about the likely effects on work decisions. First, consider a person that was working quite a bit. EI has a substitution effect as the relative price of leisure has dropped and should drive an increase in leisure time. And it has an income effect, which also drives an increase in leisure. So we'd expect to see a reduction in work hours for this person. For a different person, working about half the year, the program really just has an income effect. The slopes of these segments of the budget constraint are parallel. So we'd expect some increase in leisure for this person as well. But what about the person who had not been participating? This person could be persuaded to join the labor force for at least those 12 weeks to become eligible for EI. So overall, when we look at the participants, we might expect some adverse effects on labor supply, but the program might also encourage some to enter the labor market. In our next video, we will take a look at how we model the onset of a disability and some of the programs we have available for income support if that happens. See you then.